Then, oh, no problem. I can marry you and I can become Muslim. And it's, for me, it doesn't matter, but it doesn't mean I'm Muslim. In my heart, I said, because I don't want to lie, even then. Even if I didn't believe yet in the God, but I still didn't want to lie.
Today we got some special guest for you. Yeah, him. He's not my father. I'm not his child. Very nice, gentle, charming, and insightful man. Welcome, brother Anton from Scandinavia. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much.
So the first question for you: are you Viking?
Vikings is extinct, I think.
Oh, extinct.
But yeah, I should be a descendant from the Vikings,
Viking.
inshallah. Through my father, I think. My mother is actually from Finland.
Oh, from Finland.
Yeah. So, and her family a little bit vague for us. We don't know too much about her family, her background. And the Finnish people actually, like the historians say, they came from the Oral Mountains in Russia, like mid Russia, and went walking, like emigrated to the area of Finland. So maybe she's more like from that part, and my father is, as I know, yeah, around his forefathers like Danish, Norwegian, and Swedish. So I guess I'm like 50% descendant of
Viking.
Viking.
Oh, yeah.
Inshallah.
Because I see some memes about Viking.
Mm.
If we visit Scandinavian, we go to travel, we see the nature. But if Scandinavian visit you, there is war. So maybe you have a little bit of Viking
Blood.
maybe I feel more safe.
Yeah, that's nice.
Okay, can you share a little bit about your background? Where you exactly come from?
Yeah, I come from Sweden. It's a part of Scandinavia, neighbor to Norwegia, Finland, and Denmark. And across the sea, the Baltic Sea is like Estonia, Lithuania, and Russia. So I'm around that area, and yeah, I grew up in Sweden from small in just the same house, the same place in the outskirts or in the forest actually. So I'm not a city man. I'm a local,
Local man?
yeah, local man from the
So,
forest.
something like village? Or,
Yeah, but if you compare to the village of Indonesia, it's like still a lot of people, right? But yeah, for us European people, like village, I'm not around the stores and that, like the central area of the village, but I'm in deep into the forest, like that. But we have some neighbors.
is it far away from Malmo? From the town of Ibrahimovic?
I think it's like 3 hours or something.
3 hours?
Yeah, around 3 hours with car.
What exactly the name of your village? The area?
The small village is the name is Oksabek.
Huh?
Oksabek.
Oops.
But like Mark's commune is like the what you say maybe Kabupaten or something in Indonesia. So it's like Mark's commune.
How about your family? You have sibling?
Yeah, I have 3 big brothers and 1 big sister. So the sister is the oldest one, and then the 3 other brothers, and lost me. I'm the smallest one. Or not the smallest, but
The latest.
the latest.
The youngest, yes, right, youngest. What about your business or family business in that place?
In Sweden, my father, he got from his father, my grandpa, he opened like a recycling before. He was opening a lot of businesses, but the last one was recycling. My grandfather, and then he gave it to my father and his sister. So they own it together, and they developed, kept going with recycling, like recycling of metals. But also before it was glass, like bottles and such, and also plastic, uh, and yeah, a lot of different stuff. But then they was the main focus became on the scrap metal, like the metals. And by time they started to selling fabrics as well. Fabrics for like the curtains, for the beds. My mother, she was just a worker in the hospital and care for old people and like uh, sick people, like psychological diseases, like schizophrenia, with a bad background, like drinking and doing drugs and stuff. But when when I was born, I was late child, and before that she was working. But when I came, it was 5 children. So my father and mother decided my mother will stay in the house. So actually, I got the blessing of having my mom always in the house with me.
Full of love from your mother.
Yeah, because already 5 children, so my father take the work and mother just educate us and give us all the food and stuff.
Very good. For your information, Sweden has a lot of archipelago like Indonesia, right? It's very lot of.
Yeah, yeah, it's true, but it's different, right? And I don't travel a lot in the archipelago, but it's mostly in Stockholm actually, and a lot of small islands there. But I have not traveled there, and I don't know. I think many of the islands is like not many people going there. Maybe some going like with the boats, but I think Indonesia is still, even if it's more islands in Sweden, they say. I think Indonesia is more like they settle on the islands.
The Sweden, land of aurora, the northern lights, the green one. And what exactly brought you to Indonesia?
I have always been loving the nature
Yes.
since small. Always loved traveling and adventure. So I was used to also watching in television documentaries about nature, about the sea and the rainforests and everything. I wanted to learn and I studied and I loved it and I like to see it, of course. So when I grew up, was in the last time in my school, in the 18 years of age, 17, 18. I already planned to want to go, and I study a lot about abroad, about nature and where is the best place. I wanted to see all the world actually. So I started working after the school and try to save as much money as possible and work as much as possible. And during the time I was watching the nature programs, I really loved Raja Ampat.
Raja Ampat, Papua.
Yeah, in Papua. So I didn't meant to go to Indonesia, but Raja Ampat is in Indonesia. That's why. So I got the opportunity. I find a package trip from some divers because I love diving as well. So, but I was new into diving. Before I was just snorkeling during my age when I was, young age. So when I got older and got the opportunity to dive by myself, I had my own money, I can go on trips. I got some knowledge about it and I got the opportunity to apply for this trip. But they have requirements higher than I have reached in the diving skills. But they say because you want to, really want to, yeah, it's no problem. You can come with us. So I decided I went with them, but I said to them, I will not go home after the trip. I will keep traveling by myself because I really wanted to keep going and travel the world. And was planning to work during the time as well to get more money if it finished. maybe in Australia and so. Like that.
So, how long have you been in Indonesia?
I have been here back and forth since around 2013.
2014.
13.
13?
Mm.
Okay. Like 11 years in
Yeah.
Indonesia.
So not totally in Indonesia all the time. Sometimes I went home 1 year, come back 1 year and a half or more, and back and forth.
Okay. What's made you embrace Islam?
Embrace Islam in the beginning, actually because I wanted to marry.
Oh, so you married a Indonesian woman?
Yes, I
Oh,
met after Papua, and I went to Manado in Sulawesi.
in Bunaken?
Yeah,
Bunaken.
Bunaken and Lembe. There is a Bitung, it's a harbor city in the north as well, called Bitung, and there is like Lembe Strait, or like they say in Indonesia, Selat.
Yes, right.
There is good diving spots as well. So I went there, and then after a time in Sulawesi, I went to Bali. And in Bali, I went and met many friends, and from them was my wife. So,
Alhamdulillah.
and by time, yeah, we became interested in each other, and she called me to marry because Muslims have to marry, right? And Bule don't have to. Bule is like they have their own rules. They don't follow the rules of the Lord and Allah.
Oh, it's like more secular person.
Yeah, in Scandinavia and Europe, in the West, it's very secular society, and the people already have left a lot of their old traditional teachings from the Christianity and so on. So it's very different. But I knew in Indonesia it was different because we have in Europe or in West a lot of education and a lot of awareness of abroad. Like I knew Indonesia was religious people, and so I wanted to, because my wife had iman, the belief and faith. Of course, I wanted to respect her, and I said, when she called to marry, I said, no, no problem. I can marry you, and I can become Muslim. And it's for me it doesn't matter, but it doesn't mean I'm Muslim in my heart. I said, because I don't want to lie, even then. Even if I didn't believe yet in the God, but I still didn't want to lie.
It's like only the legal administration, maybe.
Yeah,
You
and
refer to Muslim.
if it was hard, you know.
Oh,
What do you mean about the?
because you know the phrase of Islam KTP, you know, in
Yeah,
Indonesia.
yes, yes. Okay, yeah, it was like that.
Oh,
But I told
yes.
my wife,
Mm.
so she knew I wasn't doing it for
But your wife
religion.
accepted it.
Yeah, she accepted.
Oh.
I said to her, I say to her today, if I were you, I wouldn't accept it. But you made a gamble with your faith and
Yeah.
your akhirah, and alhamdulillah, but you win. Inshallah,
But
inshallah.
it's maybe a very good gamble. So
Yeah.
we your friends, you know, we know you is very kind person, very real Muslim. What makes you the real Muslim back there?
Yeah, it's a long story, short story, depending, but I during that time I was still doing some instructor course in the diving. I was diving in Bali also, and we said, okay, I just finished my studies, and then we go to your kampung or your village in Kalimantan, Borneo, to marry. So I finished. We go to Kalimantan. I have to become Muslim. I follow the procedure. And but when we wanted to get married, it was this legislation and our administration. Her father said, "Oh, it's easy. Just come. It's easy." And then when we come and go to become Muslim, and then I want to marry, she say like, they say there in the place, "Oh, you have to go to Jakarta to make in the embassy and everything. So it was
Yes, yes, yes.
a few challenges. But anyway, during this time, I went to Jakarta for 2 weeks, waiting for the administration from Sweden as well. And there I got the opportunity to live in a family, Muslim family. They invite me. And I was studying there, but I still not have the true faith, right? But I saw the man, the ustad, in the masjid. I always loved to, since before, to learn about meditation. I wanted to learn about meditation, and because it seemed to me to be like very healthy for your heart and calm you down in this stressful world. So I wanted to find that style in my life also. But I saw, oh, Muslim people also like meditation. So because I saw a like dhikr in the masjid, so I saw, oh, that was like the first kind of started to open my heart a bit, but not yet fully. So when we finished the administration, I go back to Kalimantan. I married with my wife, and after that, not a long time after that, we go back to want to go to Bali again. But on the trip, we go like the ferry to Surabaya, Semarang to Surabaya. There we stay a night, and I was given the Al Quran with the Bahasa Indonesia, the Indonesian language. And I was happy because I, since small or younger age, I wanted to actually someday read a holy
Hollywood.
book, whatever holy book. So I wanted to learn, but not yet got opportunity and many busy things in my life until then. So I bring to Bali, and Bali had already been 1 year before that. It already gone 1 year now during this time. So I was already used to Bali. So I was not traveling a lot. I was just staying in the place and chilling out. And then I read this. So I started to read when I come to Bali. I read all the book in 1 week. And but already in the Surah Al-Baqarah, in the first chapter of the Quran, the second chapter in the Quran, I already start to believe it because I saw a lot. Yeah, I find
It's very logical or
yeah logical. I get a good explanation about Satan and Allah, like the relation between them. Because since I was small, we always seen the television programs like for kids and also for grown-ups. We see like the Satan with this stick and it's red.
yes.
And
Like devils.
I also thought always like it's a war between Satan and God, right? I thought this, but in Islam it's not true because Allah is the Almighty.
More higher.
He's so high, and He created Satan. I didn't know this.
No?
I just thought this was like just like a war between bad and
Good.
good and bad, or good and evil. But I got the clear explanation from the Al Quran, and also I got the explanation about the prophets. I didn't know before I ever heard actually about the Moses. Yeah, I heard about Moses. I heard about Joseph in English. Yeah. We say Yusuf. We say Musa. Right?
Musa, Moshe.
But all these prophets, I didn't know what meant to be a prophet or what it was before. But in Al Quran, it's also clearly. All these ones is messengers, and they brought the same message. So then I understood. It was clear to me. Oh, that's the why all this. And then it was about Muhammad and Isa and Musa. I saw everything was complete,
Connected.
right? In the Al Quran also. If I compare now to the other religions, I feel Islam is complete because it's very clear about prophets. It's clear about the relation between Satan and Allah. It's also, I mean, they accept Muhammad, right? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. They accept Isa, Jesus. They accept Musa, Moses. But we see like other faiths, they don't accept everyone. But Islam accept everyone, and everyone came with the same message, yes, to worship Allah alone and no one beside him. So not doing shirk, they say. Like you don't have many gods or don't worship rocks and so on. So I felt it was very natural for me to I mean accept this. It was very logical and pure. Yeah? The explanation was pure.
So you get the hidayah from the logical thinking, not the from like a spiritual journey, maybe? Have you
Not,
ever?
never spiritual journey.
Oh.
That actually has come with iman afterwards. Like you get your dua or your prayer accepted, like unbelievable situations, and you pray and you happen or you get the help. That's like my spirituality, right? But it's also another thing because I was in Sweden. I was studying and listening a lot about Illuminati.
Oh,
You know
Freemason, I
Illuminati.
know.
So the Freemasonry, these rich families like Bilderbergs, like the Rothschilds, especially Rothschilds, and also about the Jews, about the Jewish community, about the banking systems and everything. I see in Quran it always talk about Bani Israel, right? And about many of their things they did and done. And also, they were by the time because I was already start to believe. I started to also find out about hadith and everything, and I find like the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He talk about their sifat or their characteristics and everything, and I saw how could he tell all this 1,400 about years ago, and they still these characteristics, and they're still like doing like riba and changing the laws and everything. And so it was like wow, like a wow feeling for me when I read this.
Amazing.
Yeah, amazing. So that was also a very strong reason that I started to believe. So alhamdulillah, I got the knowledge about the Illuminati and the richest families in the world, and by that I could accept Islam as well.
My next question is it hard to be a real Muslim? You know, we don't do drink, don't eat pork, have to pray 5 times a day, kind of like that. Is that for you?
No, it's very easy. It's the easiest thing in Islam. But Allah says also in the Quran, "Ahasiban nas ayat yutraku an yakulu amanna wa hum la yuftanun." Do the mankind think that it's just enough they say they believe and they will be left alone and not be getting trials or tested before? So that is the biggest challenge as a Muslim, because when you say la ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah, that means Allah will test you, and that's the biggest challenge. Not the salah, not to not eat pork, not to, because that was hadiah for me. In Indonesia, hadiah is present for me because actually when I got this, it's like a relief for me. Alhamdulillah, I don't have to drink anymore. I don't have to. Yeah, pork was no problem, but I also realized it's not healthy, right?
yes,
But like the alcohol actually was a blessing for me because before I ever drink, I'm yeah, I tell you, it's normal for bule, right?
Yes.
So, and many times I drank too much and like just puking and feeling bad, and the day after you get like headaches, and it's not good for the health. It's very bad. So I blessing to quit with alcohol, and it was easy because if you already have the belief and you went from not knowing that you will live forever in the afterlife. So before it was just like live your life as funny as possible and don't care about anything like that. But now I have that purpose in my life, so I really loved it. So I engage or embrace everything completely. Oh, I don't do this. So normally, I think it's normal for like our as mualaf. They say the new Muslims is normally called mualaf. They say, I think many of them, which is really truthful in their iman, there is very enthusiastic in the beginning, especially in the beginning, because they have pure heart, come from no sins. Because when you go into Islam, your heart become clean. Allah clean your sins. So, and especially you come from a bad situation or bad lifestyle, and you get to hear, oh, now you can live forever. Now you can live and enjoy all your life. You just need to be patient for some years. Yes, don't do bad. Yes, do what Allah say and the Prophet say, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and leave what they prohibit you from. And then you will go to heaven, I
Jannah.
mean paradise, Jannah, and stay there forever. And the explanation also is amazing because the Jannah is like thousands of times more enjoyable and delicious than this world. So yes, got a little promille or I don't know about in this world.
You have a family here, you have children. Why you don't bring them to Europe? Because I think it's more easy to make money in Europe.
Yeah, that's where the dunya and akhirah come into talking.
Oh,
Because as a believer, Europe or the West is not very suitable according to my opinion because